Welcome to your first lesson for the TJC drafting class on AutoCAD. I am Mr. Dieter, for those of you that don't know me. Let's get started. The objectives for Chapter 1 that we'll be looking at today are understanding how the X, Y, and Z coordinate system is used, understanding why you should create drawings full size in the actual units of CAD, being able to start AutoCAD and begin drawing, recognize the areas of AutoCAD drawings, be able to use the many methods of entering commands, be able to turn on and off snap, grid, ortho, polar, and dynamic input drawing aids, and know how to customize AutoCAD windows for your preferences. So let's start with some concepts. The coordinate system in AutoCAD goes on an X, Y, and Z coordinate system. So X, if you know math, X, and then Y, and then Z would be depth. So that goes on X, Y, and Z coordinates. That's how we'll be using it. So the first thing we need to know is that they're called Cartesian coordinates, and that is something that will be important for you to know. We will be working mostly in 2D in this class and not really very much in 3D, but at the end of the class, we'll look a little bit at 3D. So let's look at angles in AutoCAD. Angles in AutoCAD, the default setting direction, the default direction of straight down will be measured at 270 degrees. That straight down will be 270 degrees. So that means straight to the left would be 180, straight up would be 90, and over would be, so you'd have 0, 90, 180, 270, back to 0 for your whole circle there. And that's how coordinates work. Also, as I said off the top, you draw in real scale. It should be created using what's called true size. So the rule for creating CAD drawings is that a computer drawing should be created true size using real world units. Also, it's going to display coordinates for you. The coordinates it will be displaying is going to be the position of your crosshairs on the screen. The position of your crosshair on the screen will be where your coordinates are, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about menus. We're going to talk a little bit about I'll mention plotting. We're not going to do that for a little while, but that's when you print your drawing. We're going to import the TJC drawing template, and we will draw them that way. So that's how we will do those. So let's talk about starting AutoCAD. This is it right here, this A. So we're going to double click on that, AutoCAD 2022 English. And we'll wait a second for it to open. Since this is your first time to open AutoCAD, you will not have anything here. This shows your previously worked on drawings. So double click, launch AutoCAD 2022, as I have, or it might be 20, I don't know. Depends on which one we have on the computers here. So when you start AutoCAD, and I'm looking along with the book here, you'll see the start screen. When you open AutoCAD, the Start tab appears, and you can choose how you want to work. Your AutoCAD environment can be discussed later, but we're going to do new. So we're just going to click the new button right here, and then we have a drawing open. And yours may look like this, yours may look like this with no grid. Either way, it is fine how it starts, because we're going to mess with all those settings here in a little bit as we learn about AutoCAD. So that is how you start and begin a drawing. So we are now in drawing 1 is what it defaults to. We will learn how to name drawings a little bit later on in this class. I think Mr. Farmer is going to cover that. So let's talk about what's called workspaces. So you see these 3 lines down here, that is it. Over here, under your settings, drafting and annotation is your current workspace. It's going to default to that. We're going to use that 99% of the time in this class, the drafting and annotations workspace. So that's what it is. It's this little settings gear looking thing right here. If you click on that, it comes up with all of your workspace settings, but drafting and annotation is what we're going to use. All right. The ribbon is located at the top of the screen. This right here is called the ribbon. This has a lot of your commands. This is your drawing commands. This is your modify commands. These are your annotation commands. These are your layers, which we'll get into later. These are your block. These are your properties. And then you've got other stuff over here, your clipboard, other things we won't use very often. So that is called your ribbon. So remember that this top bar right here, this is called your ribbon. This is your graphics area. This is where you're going to draw things, right? So if I want to draw a circle, I'm going to draw it right there in the graphics area. That is what that area right there is. That is the graphics area. All right, then you have your palettes. Your palettes are There aren't any here right now, but they're like pop-ups. So if I want to look at properties of this drawing, I'm going to type prop, click on properties, and this is your properties palette. So this is a palette. It shows you a lot of information. So that is what a palette looks like, and you may choose to leave some open once you get into AutoCAD and start learning how to use it. Then your command line is down here where it says type a command. And that's where you say, like, I want to fillet a drawing. So you'd say fillet, it would come up with your command, you'd click on it, and then you would fillet something. There's nothing to fillet right now. So that is your command line. All right, there are a lot of different things to learn in AutoCAD. So these are your layers. Right now, there's only one because we just started a new drawing. If you want to create a new layer, you'll go here under Layer Properties. And you'll look at these buttons. And they each do different things. Set current, delete, new layer, frozen, or new layer. We'll talk about frozen later. I can add a new layer and just call it lines if I want. And then we can choose our color from a wide variety. Let's go maroonish. We can choose how we want our line to go. Right now, there isn't anything there. We'll have to load it. I'll show that to you later. With that, those are your layers. And that was your layers palette. So, sort of an introduction here to AutoCAD for you. So we also have things called shortcut menus. How do you access a shortcut menu? Well, let's talk about that. To access your shortcut menu, you're going to right-click on your mouse, and this is your shortcut menu, and it will pop up. So a shortcut menu is activated by pressing the right mouse button. Now, say I do that, say I'm in a command, say I want to draw a circle, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to draw a circle. How do I get out of this? So if I try right-clicking, that doesn't do anything. That's just going to set it. So I'm going to hit that. So how do you get out of that? In order to cancel a command, you hit the escape key on your keyboard. That is the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard, the escape key. That is how you get out of that. So let's talk about some of this other stuff down here. Let me turn pages here. So let's talk about some of our other menu items that we have in AutoCAD that we'll talk about. All right, so let's talk about, excuse me for just a moment. Let's talk about Ortho. Ortho is going to be this. These are going to be your commands down here that you'll use for snapping and things like that. So here is Ortho mode. What does Ortho mode do? So now if I want to draw, you see, if I go up or down from the line, it only goes 90 degrees. It only goes north, south, east, and west. It doesn't go anywhere else. Ortho mode turns that on. If I go down here and turn ortho mode off, now my line can swing 360 degrees. Turn ortho mode back on, my line can no longer swing 360 degrees. That is what ortho mode does. This is polar tracking. That makes the cursor only go specific angles. Polar tracking is the next one. Polar tracking will only let you go to certain angles. So if I draw here, it only lets me draw. If you turn on polar tracking, you can tell it 90, 180, 270, 360, or 45, 90. So if I try to set it there, see, it's at 45. It won't let me set it till I get to one of those angles. You can see the green line show up when I get to those angles. So that is polar tracking. Let's turn that off. Let's talk about the grid too while we're talking about that. The grid is this right here. It looks like a grid, right? It turns on this grid mode where you can actually follow these lines if you want to while you're drawing. That is your grid mode. And then your snaps, which will be one of the most important things that you wind up using. Right here, these are all your snaps. You've got endpoint, midpoint, center, geometric center, which we don't normally use, node, which we don't use unless we're doing something like surveying where we have nodes on the screen. Quadrant, we will use sometimes, intersection, extension, insertion point, perpendicular, tangent, nearest, apparent intersection, which is another important one, and parallel. So if I want to draw, say, a line here, here, and then draw a line parallel to it, I'll say that. I'll come over here. It'll give me that parallel snap. So those are all your different snaps that you can use. Snaps, again, are super important. This is your snap icon right here. So be sure that you're looking at that. There are other things like units. You're always going to have your units set 1-to-1 for the most part, because we're going to draw them at real world, like I said earlier in the thing. Now, say you want your grids to be turned on, and you don't want to do all the trouble of going down here and clicking that. You can just hit F7 on your keyboard, and it'll bring it up. In fact, the F keys do all kind of cool stuff for you in AutoCAD. So F1 is your help menu. F2 is your text window. F3 is object snap. F4 is 3D object snap, which again, we won't be using 3D very often in this class. F5 is isoplane. F6 is dynamic UCS. We haven't talked about that yet. F7 is grid, which we just showed. F8 is ortho. So say I'm drawing this. Oh, wait, I need ortho on. If I hit F8, now it is set in ortho. Okay, so F8 does that. F9 brings up your snap menu. Turn snap on, turn snap off. So that's what F9 does. F10 is your polar tracking. F11 is your object snap tracking. And F12 is dynamic input. So those are your different F commands and how they work in AutoCAD, right? So the primary difference, let's talk about model space. This is model space right here. This is what we're in right now. You also have layout spaces. These are your paper spaces when you go to print something out. These are where you will put them. Now, the primary difference between your model space and a layout tab is that model space is where you create the drawing, and layout tab is where it represents the sheet you're going to print it out on. So that is the big difference between your model tab and your layout tab. So that is a very quick overview of chapter 1. So let's review a couple of things as you get ready for the quiz at the end of this chapter. So I want you guys to know angles are measured in a counterclockwise direction in AutoCAD. Do not forget that angles are measured counterclockwise, right? Counterclockwise, like this. They are not measured clockwise. They're measured counterclockwise, right? Also, a CAD drawing is considered a virtual full-size object, no matter how large the objects in the drawing may be. You do it all full size, right? We're going to do a real-world scale. We talked about that. And then, of course, in the menu bar, all commands that invoke a dialog box end with the ellipse point. So anyway, all right. So if you have any questions, let us know. Enjoy the quiz to chapter 1. It is a 10-question quiz that will go over everything we've covered plus what is in the book. We have a book for each of you here that you'll get to use in school to look at. So if you have any questions, let us know, and good luck on the quiz. Thanks.